The San Francisco 49ers have officially moved on from defensive coordinator Nick Sorensen. Now, there is more to the story than just that. Sounds like he could return in some capacity. We'll talk about that in greater detail. But the San Francisco 49ers have fired Brian Schneider, their special teams coordinator. They have relieved Nick Sorensen of his duties. That's two big coaching positions to fill that the 49ers now have to add to their offseason checklist. So let's react to it all. Drop your SDS in the chat. I want to know how you guys are feeling about this. Make sure you smash that like button and let's get into it all right now. Smash that like button if you haven't already. Love to see it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it actually happened. It was funny. I was just on KNBR with Larry Krueger. Probably just asked me this question. Maybe 2.5 minutes, maybe 3 minutes before this news came down. He said, "What do you think they're going to do with Nick Sorensen?" I said, based on how this season has progressed, and there was a point a couple weeks ago where I was like, you know what? I could actually see Nick Sorensen sticking around, but how the season progressed, how the defense showed up those last couple of weeks, I was like, maybe they don't. Maybe they don't. Maybe they move on and they make a different decision. And that is exactly what the San Francisco 49ers have done. Two major coaching moves in the last 24 hours for the San Francisco 49ers. Boy, oh boy. Before we get into anything crazy, we know what it is. Let me provide the information. Then we'll react. Let me provide the information. I want to make sure I give you the full context of what's going on. So this original report, I saw it first from Matt Barrows. Maybe it came first from Matt Mayoko. Just want to give either of the Matts. I mean, shout out to both the Matts. They do phenomenal work. So they both deserve credit. But I saw it first from Matt Barrows, who had detailed that the 49ers have moved on from Nick Sorensen. And this is what Matt Barrows said directly. He said, per league source, the 49ers are moving on from Nick Sorensen at defensive coordinator. The team hopes it can retain Sorensen in some capacity. The 49ers have an opening at special teams coordinator, and Sorensen was a special teams coordinator in Jacksonville in 2021. So if you missed it, the team hopes it can retain Sorensen in some capacity. So although Nick Sorensen won't be the defensive coordinator for the 49ers moving forward, he might be on the staff. He might fall back into his old position coach job. He could take over the special teams coordinator role, which would be kind of fascinating because I also believe Matt Barrows floated that a couple days ago, and he might actually be right. Krueger also asked me about that, and I said, I mean, it's not a bad idea. It could be trickier than maybe it sounds, but maybe it's not. Maybe Sorensen is open to that move. I don't know. We'll see. But the next question becomes, who is going to be the San Francisco 49ers next defensive coordinator? And before we get into that conversation, let me reset the chat. I haven't been able to look at what you guys have been saying, so get ready to present all your reactions to me at once. Nick Sorensen has been relieved of his defensive coordinator duty for the 49ers. How do you react? Drop it in the chat, emojis, whatever. Let me know how you're feeling. Like I said, I haven't even been able to look at the chat yet. Too much stuff going on. But is this signal positive? Is this good? Is this positive change? Is this a negative? Do you see the 49ers moving in the wrong direction? How would you rate this move? Are we good? Are we back? Are we on our way back? So far, I see some thumbs up. We got Sean checking in on X. We've got Juan's very happy about it. Robbie's saying very positive. Lil Heater saying it's good. JM says 10 out of 10. So JM's never happy. So if JM 617 is happy, wow. Wow. Wow, 49ers. I'm not sure. I've seen JM positive about anything in a while. So this is amazing. Shout out JM. I had to. I've been seeing him. I've seen all those comments. All love, JM. I appreciate you, dog. Yeah, you happy about it. You happy. Looks like everyone's happy. I think if I had to give my comments and my opinions and thoughts on it, I think it just signals kind of like a rebirth, a new chapter. I think last year, the 2024 season was just a disaster from the second that Super Bowl ended. And it never got better. It never improved. It just seemingly got worse as the year progressed. It rolled into training camp. Actually, it rolled into OTAs. It rolled into mini camp. Then it rolled into training camp. Then it rolled into the season. And then we never got off that hamster wheel. And so for me, I personally don't love celebrating people losing their jobs. However, I do like that it signals a bit of a new chapter, something different, something that presents optimism, something that presents, all right, maybe this is the move that we've been waiting for. Maybe that's it. Who knows? Because that's a big move. That is a big move, and we don't know who the next DC is going to be. But as it stands right now, they're going to be looking, and they're going to be on the phones, and someone's going to need to come in here and take over this role. And I am of the mindset that the 49ers are going to do something very similar to what they have done recently. This is my assumption. Now that could change. We'll see. But like we saw with Steve Wilks, like we saw with Nick Sorenson, my assumption is they're going to try to find a coach who has been either developed this scheme or birthed from this scheme to be able to be put into this scheme, so that I've seen a lot of people not happy with the wide nine, but it is who we got with Chris Kosurik. You got, Johnny Holland. You got some mainstay coaches that have been on that defensive side, and it seems like they really want to maintain that group Bullocks with the DBs. They just need a guy to be able to dial it up in the right moment. And when I think of dialing it up in the right moment, I think of DeMeco Ryans. I think when he got into a rhythm as a defensive coordinator for the 49ers, it was great being able to see DeMeco Ryans change his game plan week to week based on his personnel and based on what the opposing offenses were trying to implement. So with all of that being said, that's what I think we're just really looking for. We're looking for a guy to take ownership of this defense, to be able to pull the levers when needed, dial up exotics when we need to, drop back into coverage when we need to, only rush 4, be able to get back into that rhythm that I felt like it started with Robert Saleh, and then DeMeco was able to take it over, but we just haven't been able to find anyone to fit that role since. And this is what Matt Barrows had said right after this. Let me show it. Let me share my screen with you. He had said um, that it's not known who the 49ers are targeting to replace Sorensen at DC. One target from last season, and again, this was who the 49ers had reached out to but was actually blocked by Saleh, was Jeff Ulbrich, former 49ers linebacker. He is still under contract with the Jets. I actually thought that the Jets had already fired him. I guess I was wrong there. He's still under contract with the Jets. It's possible and slash likely that he'll be released from the contract depending on who New York hires as the head coach. So when I think of potential replacements, I think of this guy. I really do. A guy who is 49er uh, through and through, understands the defense and the structure of it after coaching with Robert Saleh for multiple years in New York. And so that could absolutely that makes sense to me. Now, Robert Saleh also makes sense, but I don't know if Robert Saleh is necessarily looking to come back to his old stomping grounds. Maybe Saleh is considered for a head coaching job, maybe not. Maybe he takes a DC job somewhere else. I don't know. But I don't know. I don't know if Saleh is looking to return. So if he is, I'm for it. I'm not against it. I just have a little bit of a hesitation of saying that absolutely Robert Saleh, it's his job to have. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. It's going to be fascinating to hear from Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch tomorrow. It was announced right before that the 49ers will be meeting with the media at 11:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, and that we'll be able to get a little bit more information into kind of the thought process behind this deal, this situation, why these decisions were made, and all of those things. But man, nonetheless, like I said, if anything, this signals a breath of fresh air. It just signals a change, right? And in 2024, there's a lot of things that went wrong, and I just feel that this represents just like I said earlier, a new chapter. So it seems like predominantly 49er fans are open to it. I think that this was what we were all anticipating, and now we'll see. Now we'll see what happens next. Um, it, do you guys think? Let me ask you guys this question. I want to see what the chat has to say. Chat, do you think Kyle Shanahan would move away from the wide nine? I really think that is the biggest thing that is anchoring them to the kind of offshoot of the Seattle cover three defense, um, run through the wide nine, um, with how that whole situation has played out. So I'm curious, would they consider a coach and that would move away with that or move away from that? So I don't know. I don't know. What'd you say, David? He said, "Why we post in the chat? You never answer." Come on, David, do better. Do better, pal. Tell him. Tell him, my boy. Let him know. Let him know. He says, I think they need, Jason says, I think they need to apply the right defensive lineman for the wide nine to operate as it should. Bingo. So I've seen a lot of backlash on the wide nine. I have less of an issue with the wide nine. I have more of an issue with the personnel who is executing the wide nine. That's why last year in my final mock draft of the season, I had the 49ers taking two defensive linemen in the first and second round. I had them taking a defensive end and a defensive tackle because when I look at the 49ers defensive line that moved on from Eric Armstead, they still had Javon Hargrave at the time. We didn't know what Malik Collins was. I'm actually pleasantly surprised with Malik Collins and a bunch of other guys. I felt like, you brought in Leonard Floyd, nice move, but I 100% agree. Like, you need two stout interior defensive tackles with two stud edges. If you just have the four stud defensive linemen, you can run coverage on the back. You don't have to run exotic blitzes because you're getting home with four. And that's why I've seen the deterioration of the 49ers defensive line as of late. And so my thing has been more personnel related and less scheme related. We've seen the 49ers go to a Super Bowl with rushing four. Literally a rookie Nick Bosa, Eric Armstead, DeForest Buckner, and D Ford. They went to the Super Bowl with those four guys and just rushing four, dropping coverage in the back end. You had Richard Sherman out in coverage. You had Emmanuel Mosley, undrafted free agent rookie, rotating in with Ahkello Witherspoon, who I believe had gotten benched that year. We didn't even know who was at safety. Was it Tarvarius Moore, I believe his name was? And then you had Kowalski, and then you had Jimmy Ward. You had, I believe it was 2019. 2019 was second year Fred Warner, rookie Dre Greenlaw. When you really look at the 2019 49ers defense and you look at how successful they were, because remember, in that season in 2019, the offense wasn't great. It was the defense, but it was primarily the front four. It was that defensive line and their ability to drop everyone else in coverage and get home with four. And that's personally what I'm looking for. And so when people say like, "Oh, what are we going to do in the draft?" Man, this right now I think is at the top of my list. For everything that I just explained, if they can somehow get their hands on Mason Graham, and I don't know how it's going to happen. Some project him as a top 5 pick. Maybe he slides out. I don't know. Maybe the 49ers find an option in the draft. Maybe. We'll see. But man, you get me a Mason Graham, I'm hyped. Trade for Buckner and Myles Garrett if it's possible. Could you imagine? That would be insane. If you got Myles Garrett and Nick Bosa on the opposite side of each other, cooking. So I'm for it, man. I'm really like, we got to get that D line back. The D line is really a lifeblood of this team for a reason. So, man, I don't know if any of these are realistic, but that's the idea. Just go get me a bunch of TJ Watts. Go get me Bosa's brother. Go get me Max Crosby. Go get me everyone. Spare no expense. Put it on the black card. Doesn't matter. Spare no expense. Oh my goodness. I just want to see the defensive line back. There you go, my boy. What do I think about Wink Martindale as DC? Wink he's with Michigan. Am I correct in that? I believe that's where he's at right now. Because he was with the Giants, and then he went to Michigan, I believe. I believe that's where he's at. It would be interesting. I think it would. I think he's still considered highly in NFL circles. as a defensive coach. So, oh, he's in LA with Oh, so he followed Harbaugh. All right. What about Eberflus? He always had a good defense, even with lesser talent. Definitely not a sexy name at all, considering kind of what had went down with the Bears. But I'm open to it. I would have to do a little bit more research into it to feel a little bit more comfortable about it. But I hear what you're saying. I would be interested. I would look into it, is what I'm saying. I'd be interested in looking into it. Um, so let's do this. Let's reset. Let's pull the chat. Give me right now, reset the chat, clear the mind. Clear the mind. Give me your dream defensive core. And I'm not saying like pie in the sky, fictional characters. No, like realistic, but your top choice. Who would be your top choice to come in that is available right now to come be the defensive coordinator for the 49ers? Has to be available, has to be a realistic option. Who would that be? Drop it in the chat. Curious to see what you guys got. Oh. So I'm seeing Saleh. Rex Ryan. He did just interview for the Jets head coaching job. Ulbrich to me seems like one of the leaders in the clubhouse. This guy Lou from the Bengals. I've heard his name quite a bit, so that could be an option. Pete Carroll. Hey, he started his career with the 49ers. I actually remember being at the combine and someone had I forget what the question was. But he had talked about how Bill Walsh was the one who gave Pete Carroll a chance. And just talked about how he got to start with the 49ers. Does it go full circle? I don't know. Sherman. I think if Sherman wanted to coach, he would have coached by now. Okay, here we go. There's a name. Bozzy says Robert Saleh 1, Antonio Pierce 2, Jim Schwartz 3. I think if I could pick, I would go Schwartzy just because I like that Schwartz seems to have answers for Kyle's scheme, and Kyle's scheme is so prevalent in the league right now. Half the league is running what Kyle's cooking up. And I think it would be great insight for Kyle to be able to have that mind in his building, very similar to the Chiefs DC. To be able to have a guy who has played you historically well, to be able to pick his brain, like, what are you keying on when we're doing this? What are you keying on when we're pulling this guy? And to be able to find out that, have a little bit more of a collaboration, because I do think Kyle, would love to see his offense evolve a little bit. We've heard a lot reinvent itself. So Jim Schwartz, to me, that would be phenomenal. I think he would be the top of my list if I could pick. I still think he's under contract. Am I tripping? I believe he's still. I think he's still the DC with the Browns. So I'm not sure he's been let go. But I don't mind it. I would absolutely kick the tires on it if it was available. Antonio Pierce. I like Antonio Pierce. I don't know what he does well as a coach from an X's and O's standpoint. I'm unfamiliar with his game. I like what I've seen from Antonio Pierce as a leader of men. He was a phenomenal player, and I think the right players can make really good coaches. And when I listened to I listened to a couple Raiders speak about Pierce today, and they said it didn't matter how bad the Raiders were this year. He had them motivated to compete in every single game. And when I hear that and I look at the 49ers and how they ended this season, did the defense really look like motivated to play even though they weren't playing for anything? I don't know. I don't know. So, one thing to consider for sure. Smash that like button for a new DC. Spread that joy. Rumor has it, if you hit the like button, it will tell you who the next 49ers DC will be. I don't know. Try it out. See what happens. Vrabel. Vrabel seems like he feels like he is going to be the head coach of the Patriots. That feels like the outcome there. That feels like what's going to happen. So I don't know if he's going to be an option. I do like Vrabel though. I do like Vrabel. I thought Vrabel could have been an option last year. I thought that would have been a nice fill-in after he got fired. But we'll see. Jacob says, Brad, how would you feel about KJ Wright? I know we hired him. He has experience in the system. I like KJ Wright too. I just don't know. I just don't know enough about KJ and his X's and O's acumen. I know he's still pretty relatively new into this coaching world. I just don't know if he's ready for that. Oh, a Navarro Bowman poaching him from the Chargers, Vic Fangio. The 49ers actually interviewed Vic Fangio when they were interested and when they ended up hiring Wilkes. So they actually had the opportunity, I believe, to hire Fangio, but that would have required them changing from a 4-3 to a 3-4 defense, which was one of the big issues for sure. So again, I think there are a lot of names, but they have to fit. I just really think that's the case. I think they have to fit what the 49ers are already built for, which is 4-3, kind of Seattle cover 3 type defense that implements the wide 9. This is another name, Gus Bradley. Might not be as sexy as some of the other names, but hey, when you think of the Seattle cover 3 defense and the Legion of Boom, Gus Bradley was a big part of that. I know Pete Carroll was the head coach, but Gus Bus was the DC at the time, so it would be a natural fit. I don't know if that's the move that the 49ers ultimately make. It could, it might not at all. So this is going to be the next leg of this whole thing, and I think what's going to be really fascinating about what the 49ers do next is there are a lot of options. There are a lot of options right now for the 49ers, and it is going to be fascinating to see who they ultimately land on. I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm looking through. I'm trying to see if there's any other names that I haven't seen yet. It feels like the number one names that I'm seeing are Ulbrich, Saleh, a little bit of Pierce thrown in there. Not a whole lot, though. Rex Ryan, I've seen that name. Bro, we started out with a bang already. We got some wild speculation, social media stuff already with Dre Greenlaw. Is he going? Is he staying? I'm curious. What do you guys think about Oh, not that name. Dennis Allen. Would Dennis Allen be a name that does anything for you guys? I know he's been the head coach of the Saints for a while, but he's a defensive minded coach. Would that be someone that you'd be like, when I think of Dennis Allen, I think of like Brandon Staley. They have the same kind of vibe to me, like from a perception standpoint. They seem similar in that regard. So I wouldn't think of that as a name where people are super excited about. And it doesn't look like, at least on initial review of the chat, that is the case. So we'll see. But these are some names: Rex Ryan Schwartz, Eberflus, Bradley, um, Chiefs defensive line coach. Interesting. Interesting. Again, if I could pick, man, I could pick. I like the idea of Schwartz. I like that. I really do. I like the idea of Schwartz. I don't know if they can make that happen, but I want someone who can compete with Kyle a little bit, you know, because these guys practice against each other, right? They're who they see a lot of the time. When we go to training camp, it's first string offense versus first string defense. I want to see some battles, man. Last year's training camp wasn't good. It just wasn't. It just wasn't. And I want to I want to see that competitive edge back. I want to see that fire. I want to see that za. I want to see these guys reignite that spirit for sure. Um what did I've seen this a couple times. Um where is it? This. Fish and Chips says, Brad, it's going to be Staley. I've actually seen this a couple times. How would you guys feel? See, to me, this doesn't make a lot of sense because was Staley the defensive coordinator just now? Was it obviously he wasn't um in that role, but he was there. He was in the building. So that seems like a real lateral move. Like real like have you seen that one meme where it's the two big guys and he like pulls his brother up from like the floor, like somehow from behind him, and they're like it's like they look like the same person. He just goes like and the other guy like flips over and starts like dance. That's what it feels like. It feels like the Spider-Man meme. Maybe that one's a little bit more uh makes a little bit more sense. The Spider-Man meme. Nick Sorenson, Joe Staley. It's like they were on the same staff, so that feels like a big lateral move, if anything else. So I don't know. We'll see, man. We'll see. The options are vast, somewhat, and I hope it's something that 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 we could no, I'm not talking about Joe Staley. Shout out Joe Staley. I love Joe Staley. No, I'm not talking about Joe Staley. I'm talking about Brandon Staley. Justin Smith, the Cowboy. That would be fun. Who makes the final decision? Kyle technically has final say, right? He's the final decision maker. But I do believe it is a collaborative effort. I really do. I think that Kyle does have final say, but I think it really does. I think it really does come down to John Lynch has say, the other defensive player coaches have say. I think they would. I think Kyle would even go as far as kind of asking some players, and so we'll see. So we'll see what happens. Um, but I'm excited because whatever DC that comes in, you would have to think that they're going to try to bring some familiarity with them, whether that's talent, whether that's other coaches that were on their staffs. They're going to try to kind of bring along some other things with them. So yeah, I keep coming back to Schwartz. Like I love the idea of Schwartz. I don't know if that's going to happen. Um, but it would be great. Would be great. So we'll see. So we actually talked about this a little bit, Corey. Do the Niners move away from the wide nine and let Kosurik go? I don't think so. I really don't. What I think would make more sense is I think it's less of a failure of the wide nine, and I think it's more of a failure of personnel. They need some big bodies on that interior. We need someone on the interior who can consistently stuff running lanes. Like we really do. We need someone who can eat up gaps and keep the linebackers free. Like we need a good defensive line. I think the problem is our defense doesn't work without a just ravenous defensive line. I just don't think it does. And you need a lot of of things, I think, to um I think it so let me refresh this a little bit. Um I do think it is more player dependent than scheme dependent. We do know from everything that we've heard from these players, the wide nine has definitely been a scheme where it takes some time. There's a bit of a learning curve to it from everything that we've heard. But at the same time, we have seen the success that the wide nine offers. So, but that requires, you know, big time, big boys up front getting after it. So we'll see. Brad, we need a Brian Flores style DC. I would love that. I would love that so much because I cannot tell you, man, when I watched film all year of 49ers opposing defensive coordinators attack our offense, I think it all started with Flores in week 2. Week uh, Flores figured it out. And that's why the 49ers look so bad against the Vikings. He had the 49ers offensive line in a blender. They didn't know which way the pressure was coming from. Brock didn't know what it was pre-snap, post-snap. And as we've learned, Brock has to make the reads and throws based on checking hot. So if they bring some exotic and they overload one side, Brock has to be able to see that in real time, understand that he's got less than a second and a half to get the ball out and find that hot. That's a lot to process. That's a lot of stuff that needs to be figured out. And when I look at Brian Flores' defense, he just had us in a blender. He 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 just he took advantage of our protection rules, and I really feel like that's where it started. And we saw other teams trying to replicate it and duplicate it, And they found success. Not everyone did, but they did find a lot of success. And again, one of the hard things is with the Brian Flores style of defense is they were figuring out how to overload free rushers rushing for. That was probably the most frustrating element of watching 49ers all 22 offensive film this year was watching 4 rush. Now, we didn't know it would be like 8 on the line of scrimmage, but based on who they dropped out, based on taking advantage of the 49ers offensive sliding rules, they would be able to mismatch and make it so it was like 3 versus 1 and then 3 versus 2 on the opposite side, or yeah, and they would be able to overload with 4. Like, overload with 4? They're only rushing 4, but they're getting free rushers. Most frustrating thing that I've seen in a while is that it didn't matter. The 49ers could have kept 6 in to protect, but they were able to take advantage of their rules. They were able to get them sliding in the wrong direction, overload the other side, drop out the other guys in coverage. So the coverage still was there. It looks like an exotic blitz, but the coverage is still there. And they scheme against the free. Oh, frustrating. Absolutely frustrating. So absolutely. A Brian Flores like attacking a defensive line that is constantly looping and stunting and trying to take advantage of the mind of offensive linemen, taking advantage of their rules, just like it happened to us this year. Yeah, I would love to see that. I would love to see that. But if we don't get that, then get me 4 stud defensive linemen and let them free. Let them go and be able to rush 4, drop everyone else in coverage, and just win that way. So we'll see, man. But I do agree. I would love to see this defense or whatever defense that the 49ers are going to be operating show a little aggressiveness. I think we've seen a pretty timid style from the 49ers defenses over the last 2 years, and it's not working. So let's switch it up. Let's go the opposite route. Let's get aggressive. Let's dance. Let's get some loopers. Let's get some stunts. Give me the tornado in the middle. Make those opposing offensive line absolutely confused of where you can still rush 4. You just don't know where those 4 are coming from. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens. But it is an exciting time for the San Francisco 49ers as they will be able to look ahead and be able to move on from what they had this past year. So it's going to be fascinating to see who it is, how it works. But that's why we're going to be tuning in tomorrow to 49ers press conference. John Lynch, Kyle Shanahan speaking to the media at 11:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I'm sure we're all going to be checking in on that to see what they have to say, how they summarize the end of this year, how they summarize these coaching moves. We got a lot of stuff to get to the bottom of, and I'm at least excited with where we're headed. I think that this season should present itself as new opportunities, and that's how we should look at it moving forward. So I love it. I love it. So appreciate all you guys, man. Thank you for tuning in, providing your reactions to me. I always like seeing what you guys have to say about this stuff, and all that stuff. David, don't you tempt me, David. David, don't you tempt me with a good time. I'm calling out the blaspheming. I'm calling it out. I answer. But I don't think what David sees is I got 4 million comments blasting at me while I'm trying to keep my my thought process. I love you guys, man. Love you guys. So appreciate you, man. Appreciate everyone. New era is upon us, and let's see what happens. Smash that like button on the way out for me. Appreciate you all. Grab your cookies on the way out. Grab extra cookies tonight because we got some optimism ahead of us. So appreciate you all. We'll be posting plenty of content. I'm out here for now. Peace. Smash that like button if you haven't already. Love to